Hello, welcome back. It's so good to see you. So today, I thought that we could color a cover page for the recipe book that I am putting together. And I just found this on Google, and I thought that it was kind of cute. So, I wanted to use my new little, I'm not sure if these are like markers or pins, but I got these for Mother's Day for my kids. So I wanted to go ahead and use these. I have them all lined up over here, ready to go. Alright, so where shall we start? It looks like there's lots of little leaves, so let's go ahead and color some of the leaves. Let's use green. Yeah, they're kind of like felt tip pins, or I don't know if they're markers, but they're very thin. I don't know if you can see that, but it's so thin. Let me tell you about my nail polish, by the way. I meant to say this in the last video, and I forgot. This is that new Revlon, like, Snap nail polish. It was like Snap Quick Dry nail polish or something. On the bottle, it said that it only needed one coat, and that it was quick dry, right? Well, I've got to tell you, look at this. Like, that is one coat of nail polish. One. It is now my favorite nail polish, and I want to get all the colors. It is so highly pigmented that it's true. It says one coat, and it means it. Like, sometimes when you get stuff, it says, oh yeah, one coat, and it's like, no, it's not. Lies. This is the first time I've ever used something that it's actually one coat, and it dried in probably about 45 seconds. And then I put the top coat, the SE Good to Go, on there, and it was good to go. Like, I could not believe it. It was amazing. So, if you have access to the Revlon Snap Quick Dry, I highly recommend it. It's amazing. Okay, so I did those leaves. Let's do these ones. I liked this image because there were so many different ones. Most of the ones that I looked up, like different little images on there, most of the cookbook coloring pages that I looked up, it was all baking related, which is fine, but I wanted it more just like random things, you know? But yeah, I am super excited about this nail polish. Oh wait, there's more leaves. Oh, here's one right here. I almost missed it. And then I'm going to go back with a lighter color. Nope. There's another one. Just random leaves everywhere. I printed this on really thick paper, so hopefully it doesn't run through. I mean, I have this little plastic placemat that I got from Dollar Tree, but you know, I still have to clean this if it runs through. Okay, now this is kind of like a yellow, but it's like a yellowy green. Yeah, it's still green, you can tell. I was hoping for more of a scratchy sound, but oh well. It's a very light green. When I'm done coloring this, I have to leave because my daughter is doing a field trip today. And I was kind of disappointed in the field trip because they had all year to come up with this field trip. And starting in January, they started talking to the students about going on a field trip. But one of her teachers, it was a substitute. She's had a long-term substitute because her original teacher had a stroke. Like, I couldn't believe it. So she's been out for quite some time because she had lost the ability to walk and talk, but she's getting better now. But so she had this long-term substitute. What color shall we do now? Let's just go with purple. I think I'm going to color these purple. I know they're not grapes. I know those are olives, but I really want them purple. So she had a long-term substitute, and the substitute was basically holding this field trip over the kids' heads. Like, she wrote the word field trip on the board, and if they acted up, she would erase one letter, and if the whole word got erased, she would cancel the field trip, which was lies. A substitute cannot do that. So my daughter would come home every day like, she erased another letter. Because some kids were talking or being bad, and my daughter, she was like, I'm so good and I'm not going to get to go on the field trip because some other stupid kids. And I told her, I was like, first of all, she's a substitute. She has no real power. I'm like, don't tell the other students that, but she can't take away your field trip. But this went on for months, and so every day she was like, she took another letter off, she put a letter back, she's like, the other kids are getting really scared, and, whatever. Because even though she erased the letters, the kids were still acting up and stuff. Anyway, so one day she comes home crying, and I'm like, why are you crying? What is happening? She was like, Miss So-and-so canceled the field trip. And I was like, she can't do that. There's no canceling of the field trip. She was like, no, she really canceled it. And I just could not believe it. And so these look like little coffee beans. This was a while ago, so I don't know, my memory is not the best, but I was like, that's not right. So I had to email the principal because I had no way to email the substitute because she was a substitute. And I said, the substitute has been holding this field trip over the kids' heads for months, and then she just canceled it. Why would she do this? She has no right. She's a substitute, you know. So the principal emails me back and says, oh yeah, that's because there is no field trip for the 3rd grade. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she said that they were going to do a field trip, but then they couldn't find a place. Like, every place was booked. So there's just no field trip. And I was like, I could not believe it. I was like, you can't tell students that there's going to be a field trip and then just not do it. Like, that's just so mean. I was just like, I don't care. Like, just talking about it makes me mad. But I'm just like, I don't care if you weren't able to book it. You had the entire year. That was somebody's responsibility, and they just failed. You know, they failed the students, and that's not right to them to promise them a field trip. And she said that the substitute was not supposed to say anything, but, you know, she understood that she needed some way to control the students. So, you know, oops. And I'm like, oops. You can't do that to kids. You just can't. She was like, well, you know, you live and you learn, and this is a learning lesson for the substitute. And I was like, it's not a learning lesson for the students. Like, it was just awful. It made me so mad. And she was like, well, we're trying to get them some sort of other field trip, you know, but we'll see how it goes. And I'm just like, what the hell? Like, I was so pissed. So I had to tell my daughter that it was for real. There was no field trip, that it really wasn't happening. But it wasn't the substitute who took it away. It was, you know, the whole 3rd grade class. And I was like, that's just not fair. It's not fair, because my son got to go on a field trip. Other grades are going on field trips. Whoever's in charge of this 3rd grade field trip situation should be fired. Like, so messed up. Anyway, but the principal had told me that they were working on something that they could do with the kids, so that they could at least do something. So I was like, okay, it's still messed up. Like, it did not make me feel any better about it. But so they're going on a field trip today, literally to the park. Are you kidding me? She said that they're gonna go to the park and they're gonna have a picnic, which is fine. They get to go somewhere. But it's like, come on, I can take her to the park. Field trips are supposed to be, you know, I don't know. I was just like, because, like, when I was a kid, field trips were places that you would go, and it was, like, educational, but also fun. You know, like, we would go to museums or the zoo or something like that. No, they're going to a park that's literally right down the street. And then I was like, hold on a second. So, and they're supposed to take their, I don't know what color I want to use. No, I think I actually do want this one back, because I'm going to color this a little tricky. They're supposed to wear their swimsuits under their clothes, because there's a little splash pad there. And I'm like, okay, are they going to be closing this park down? Because that's weird, right? To have like 300 students running around a park in their bathing suits that just anybody can go to? Like, anybody can just go to this park? Like, are they gonna shut the park down? She was like, nah, but there's a gate to the park, so it's not like the children can escape or anything. Like, we're gonna keep an eye on them. What? Like, I'm very overprotective of my daughter, especially because my daughter looks like an adult, and I don't trust people. I just don't. I have reasons. So I'm like, can parents come? Because I need to make sure that my daughter is safe. You know what I mean? Like, I just... Because if it's anything like my son's field trip, things could get crazy. So I'm gonna go to the park and be with her and have a picnic with her after I'm done coloring. I don't know what a lot of this stuff is. Like, is this supposed to be an orange or lemon? I don't know. And like, oh, I think this is like an egg. Interesting. All different kinds of little things. Let's make this a lemon. Oh my god, that's the wrong color. I grabbed the wrong one. I meant to grab this one. Oh no. There's not a blue lemon out there. Oh no. This is interesting to color with. I don't know. I think I'm just gonna make some of the stuff scratchy, like this. Oh, there's a loud truck. Hold on. Yeah, the loud truck is taking its time. Yeah, I'm just gonna make them kind of like scratchy. But yeah, let me tell you about my son's field trip. Oh my gosh. Okay. I think I'm gonna color this like mug thing. Is this beer or root beer or like what is this? I don't know. Okay, so my son went on a field trip a couple of weeks ago, and it was to this place called 7 Acre Woods. And my daughter went there like when she was in first grade as well. Yeah, I'm gonna make it more root beery. But yeah, so my daughter went there when she was in first grade, but I was not able to go because I had a baby at home, and I was unaware if you could take babies or not. I don't know, so we just stayed home. She loved it though, so my son was going on the same field trip, and so I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll be able to go now. So I went, and we had to meet them there. And what 7 Acre Woods is literally, it's just 7 acres of land surrounded by woods, and they have like, I don't know, different playgrounds, and they have a zip line, and let's make this a donut, not a bagel. Yeah, we're gonna put frosting on it. So I don't know, and they have a petting zoo, and they've got these big checkers and stuff, like life-size or checkers and chess, and they have like these big mounds of sand, and I don't know, it's just a bunch of a weird collection of things, but the kids would like it, right? Let's do gray. Anyway, so I thought that it was going to be cool, because I looked it up online, because you can just go there, you know. but I was like, oh, they'll have it shut down, you know, for schools. But anyway, so I went, and I was so disappointed. So disappointed. Like, I don't even know how to describe this place. Like, it's literally, somebody owns this place and their house is on the property. But their house is like fenced off, so I guess there's some privacy or something. But it's just open land. Oh, and they also have putt-putt golf there. But it's not, it looks very old and like gross. I was not impressed at all. But the kids really liked it. But so I show up and wait for the buses to get there, and other parents are there, and we're all just waiting. And then some employees come out and they're like, are you guys here for the field trip? And we're all like, yeah. And they're like, okay, well, why don't you come sign in and pay? So we go sign in, but like, we already paid the school, so we were just like, we paid the school. And they're like, okay, just go in and wait for them, you know, right here. So we go in and we wait. Let's do these red. I don't know what color to do those. So we go in and wait, and the students come in and they line up, and then like one of the 7 Acre Wood guys is all like, okay, you know, stick with your little partner and, you know, be good, basically. And he was like, alright, you guys can go. And literally like 200 kids, how old were they, like 6, just run out. Like it was just insane. Like if you were to hit an ant pile, and you know how those ants just run, that's what the kids were doing. It was insane. It was crazy. But anyway, so they all had like this little partner that they were supposed to stay with, like their bus buddy or something, and you know, stick with them, and then they could do whatever they want. And I was like, this does not seem organized at all, you know. I was like, this is weird. And the opening of this like park thing, the door was just open, and there was nobody like guarding anything, so the kids literally could just run out onto the street if they wanted to, you know. Like it was just pure chaos, and there was no organization or anything, and the kids were just running around, and I was like, this is the weirdest field trip I've ever seen in my life. Let's do blue. Let's color this fish blue. So anyway, I was just like, okay, this is odd. But I was like trying to keep up with my son, and like, if you're unaware, I have multiple sclerosis, so it's really hard for me to walk around. And did I think about that when I decided to go on the field trip? No. So I was like dying. My feet and legs, like, oh my gosh, it was awful. Thank goodness there were benches everywhere so that I could sit and like watch my son, but my son kept going to all these different stations, and I was like, I had to follow him so I could like sit down for a minute, and then I'd have to get up and go, and sit down for a minute and get up and go. Like, it was just crazy. But then another school showed up, and I was like, what? Because I thought that this was shut down for our kids' school, but it wasn't shut down, and anybody could show up. And I was just like, this is weird. But another school showed up, and they had it down right. Like, they were all wearing their school shirts, and I asked the teacher, I was like, are they supposed to be wearing, their school shirt, whatever. And she's like, nah, they can just wear whatever they want. And I was like, okay, that's weird, because usually when you go on a field trip, you wear your school shirt. But they didn't. So I was like, alright, well, this other school shows up and they're wearing their school shirt. And I was like, okay, this school knows what's up. They know what to do. But this school was much more organized, because they had their teachers with each class, and they had like their little clipboards, and they were like organized, because each class got to go to each station for a certain amount of time, so that everybody could go to each, little station. And yeah, my son's school was not like that. They just exploded everywhere, right? Well, also, what made me mad was my son's school's teachers were just gone. They weren't there. And I was like, how long is this going to be going on? Because we were supposed to do lunch and, stuff like that. But I had no idea what time lunch was, like what the schedule was supposed to be. And it's because there was no schedule and there were no teachers. And that there were parents walking around. But my son was like, what are we going to eat? And I'm like, I don't know. So we tried to go look for the teacher. And there was no teacher. One of the moms heard me talking to my son, because he was like, where's Miss, what's her face? And I was like, I don't know. And she was like, are you looking for someone? And I was like, yeah, we're looking for Miss what's her face. And she was like, oh, yeah, she's unavailable. And I'm like, what do you mean she's unavailable? I'm like, where are the teachers? And she's like, I know, right? I don't know where they are. And I'm like, first of all, how did she know that Miss What's-Her-Face was unavailable? But second of all, where were the teachers? They were all just gone. And I'm like, this is not safe, because anybody can just come in. There were people who just, paid to come in to go to this place, because it's, a local attraction. But you just couldn't find any of the teachers. And I'm like, anybody could just come up in here. And like I said, there was like a bunch of woods and stuff, right? But there were these like buildings off to this side, to where there used to be some sort of attractions, but they just weren't there anymore. That's not the color that I wanted, but okay. Anyway, and I was just like, what the hell? Because there was no teachers, there were no employees. It was just kids running around like crazy. And I couldn't believe it, because just anybody could walk in there. And I'm like, dude, anything could be happening, So, like, I was concerned for not just my son, but the other students. You know what I mean? Because, like, there are some bad people out in the world. There just are, And there was no one watching these kids. It was insane. Now, I was like, maybe I'm just crazy and this isn't, maybe I'm being like a helicopter mom or extremely overprotective. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. But finally lunch came, and we finally found his teacher. She just appeared when it was lunchtime. But if I wouldn't have been there, my son wouldn't have got his lunch, because he wasn't paying attention. There was no like announcements like, hey students, come to this area, it's lunchtime. None of that. I just saw that people were gathering, and so I was like, oh, it must be lunchtime, and I go up there, and it was lunchtime. So, but again, there was no announcement or anything. Anyway, so yeah, they had brought their lunches, and some parent had brought them in the cooler. So I go up to his teacher and I was like, okay, where's, my son's lunch? And she was like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? And she's like, I don't know, some parent brought them. And I'm like, well, can we go find them? And she's like, yeah. Like, she was just acting like nothing was a big deal. And I'm like, these kids have been here for hours and they're starving. And you're just like, whatever. Like, what? Anyway, so we finally find the cooler. And my son has to stand in line for like 30 minutes because, first of all, they didn't know where any of the kids were. And they kept calling out names of students who were not there because they were still out in this area. Like, I don't know. Anyway, so he finally got his lunch, and by the time he got his lunch, there was no place to sit, so we went outside of this park area. We just walked out. No one asked any questions, nothing. We just walked out and we sat on these front benches in front of the place, and he ate his lunch with some other students who just traveled out there as well because I was out there. And I'm like, nobody's watching these kids. Like, it just drove me insane. Anyway, so yeah. Then after that, they got to play more. They just got to go roam free, So they did that, and then it was starting to be time to go home, and it was just chaos, and I wanted to leave, but I was worried, like, is my son gonna even make it back to school, because there was no, like, checking in, and, like, do we got all the students? None of that. I could not believe it. But anyway, after I made sure that my son was in line and, like, getting on the bus, I wanted to see him get on that bus, We're walking out to the parking lot, and other parents are walking behind me, and I hear them talking to each other, and they're like, I wanted to leave so much earlier, but I was just scared that my kid wasn't going to make it back on the bus. And the other mom was like, I know, it was crazy, right? She's like, I thought it was just me. So I was so glad to hear that, because I was like, oh, I thought that I was being crazy and overprotective, but I wasn't. That field trip was just totally messed up and terrible. Like, and I was just so glad when I heard them say that, because, man, I thought I was just going crazy, But my daughter, she, a few days later, because I had come home and I was, like, super mad, and I had told my husband, I was like, do I complain about this? Like, what do I do? And I was like, no, it's over. There's nothing that can be done about it now. Don't be that person. But I just felt like this wasn't right. Anyway, so my daughter, a few days later, she came home and she was like, oh my gosh, Mom, I heard one of the first grade teachers talking about the field trip. And I was like, oh, okay, what'd she say? And she was saying that it was crazy. She was saying the same things that you were saying, that it wasn't organized, and that, they couldn't believe that that's how the field trip was going. And I was like, wait, one of the first grade teachers was saying that? Like, what? But I guess, I don't know, like, even the teachers were like, but she was talking about the other school, and she was like, the other school was much more organized, like, they knew what they were doing. she was just like complimenting the other school, and I'm like, that's gotta be bad if the teacher, one of the teachers, is actually complaining about how crazy and terrible it was. I'm like, maybe they'll learn next time, because I mean, to be fair, this is the first field trip that the school as a whole has ever done, because my kids' school is brand new. It's brand new, and the very first year that they were open, COVID happened and they shut down. So they've never done field trips or anything like that before, you know? So I don't know, but hopefully they've learned from the experience. I mean, I don't know. The kids did have fun. They didn't realize that anything was wrong. They were just like, whoa, we can do whatever we want for as long as we want. But I don't know. I just thought that it was crazy. And so when my daughter told me that they're going to a park in their bathing suits, like, and this is just a park that's open to the public, I'm like, if it's anything like my son's field trip, I gotta be there, because, you know, it's just messed up. So hopefully everything goes well. Otherwise, I'm sure you'll hear me complain about that field trip as well. Anyway, look at this. Isn't it cute? I think so. And I like how I made them scratchy. It's not like solid. I mean, the leaves are solid, but I like how everything else is kind of scratchy. Anyway, I really hope that you enjoyed that, and I hope you enjoyed my complaining. Thank you so much for watching.